All right, and to Washington now, where Rudy Giuliani is raising new questions about President Trump and the Russia investigation. The president tweeted about the special counsel's probe this morning, saying the Russia witch hunt is losing credibility. He also continued to deny collusion and deny obstruction, saying he's fighting back. This comes after the president's attorney suggested Mr. Trump might plead the Fifth to avoid testifying in Robert Mueller's probe. In an interview, Giuliani said, quote, "I'm focused on the law more than the facts right now." Giuliani also indicated that Michael Cohen might have paid hush money on behalf of President Trump to other women, in addition to porn star Stormy Daniels. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid has the latest from the White House.
Rudy Giuliani has only been part of the president's legal team for about 2 weeks, but in that time he has continued to make headlines about the 2016 hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. His comments are raising new questions about just how much the president knew about that agreement.
I would think if it was necessary, yes.
Rudy Giuliani suggested Sunday that Michael Cohen may have paid hush money on behalf of President Trump to other women, in addition to adult film star Stormy Daniels.
He conducted business for the president, which means he had legal fees, monies laid out, and expenditures.
He says the president reimbursed Cohen with his own money through a monthly retainer agreement for his services.
Michael Cohen takes care of situations like this, then gets paid for them sometimes.
Giuliani's shocking claim that the president knew about the hush money deal directly contradicts the president's statement to reporters last month aboard Air Force One.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
No.
Do you know where he got the money to make that payment?
I don't know. It is time for Rudy Giuliani to be put out to pasture.
Daniels' attorney, Michael Avenatti, blasted Giuliani's legal strategy.
A storm's a coming, baby.
And dismissed questions about whether his client's appearance on Saturday Night Live undermines the credibility of her case.
We've proven to be very serious about this case.
Giuliani also insisted Saturday on Fox that the payment was not a campaign contribution and was instead an expenditure.
Even if it was for campaign purposes, if it was to save his family, to save embarrassment, it's not a campaign donation.
Campaign finance experts tell me it's the timing of that payment that is really critical in determining whether or not this really was a campaign contribution. They say if this money was exchanged in an effort to impact the outcome of the election, then it could be considered a campaign contribution, or at the very least something that the campaign should have disclosed. Now that payment, that agreement with Stormy Daniels, it is the subject of complaints to the Federal Election Commission and the Justice Department. Deborah?
Paula Reid, thank you so much. And for more on this, I want to bring in criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Vinoo Varghese. Vinoo, first of all, I want to ask you about something that Rudy Giuliani said. He said he is focused on the law more than the facts. So how do you explain that? What about the facts?
I think what he's doing is actually doing something proper to some extent, which is that a criminal defense attorney has an obligation to not only protect his client in the court of law, but also in the court of public opinion. And what he's doing here, it seems a little strange at times, and the words and things, but ultimately what he's doing is basically creating a situation where he's causing enough doubt about the investigation that members of Congress may be hesitant to vote for impeachment if it ever gets that far.
And that's one of the things a good lawyer will always do, and that is create doubt. Something you think is certain is not so certain usually. Is it possible for President Trump to actually refuse a subpoena from the special counsel, Bob Mueller?
If he invokes his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. But then again, that obviously carries a lot of political problems for President Trump, who said all along he's got nothing to hide. But if he takes the Fifth, I mean, think about it, right? What do most people think when you hear about somebody taking the Fifth? Even though it's a constitutional right, people assume that you're guilty. Otherwise, you would be talking. So what that could do politically for President Trump could create greater problems for him.
It's interesting because Rudy Giuliani has been very out front. He's a very vocal supporter for President Trump. We remember that rousing speech he gave at the Republican National Convention. When you talk about
be afraid, right?
Be afraid, exactly. Do you think that this is a PR campaign as much as anything else, right? Because he's trying to delegitimize the Mueller investigation.
I think that's definitely a huge part of it. But there's actually another part of it which I think people who don't understand how these things work, is that if President Trump has to submit to a interview And so to avoid having to declare the fifth, he may meet with investigators with his lawyers. See, if he's going into the grand jury, President Trump would not be allowed to have an attorney with him in a federal grand jury. He'd have to go in by himself and then officially invoke the fifth. But if he's going in for interviews, he can have his lawyers there. What he's trying to do is get ahead, I believe Mr. Giuliani is trying to get ahead of potential obstruction or perjury charges by saying the payment was for the agreement that he had with Cohen to take care of problems.
And perhaps it's not so much of a coincidence that Rudy Giuliani is out front on all of these issues now, a week after the questions that the president could be asked were made public. Those are the questions from the Mueller investigation. Based on your experience, what do you think the strategy is here? You're getting out front, but are you trying to counter each individual point that perhaps could be raised in the questions themselves?
What he's doing, I think, as we said, is both PR and strategically to get out in front so that he doesn't commit perjury. What they're going to do is try to limit some of the questions. What they may do, and this would be a stretch, I think, is invoke executive privilege and say that he doesn't have, he shouldn't be having to answer all these questions, shouldn't be have a subpoena. But I think really what they want to do is avoid any perjury charge for President Trump.
So we look at this. Rudy Giuliani basically said that this payment did not violate campaign finance law, that it was just an expenditure. Donuts for the staff, that's an expenditure. How do you characterize this?
I think if this is true, and the question is if, right? I mean, there's a big cloud over this, whether it's true. If he had a retainer with Michael Cohen to be his fixer, well, there's nothing improper about that. The question, though, is to what level did he turn a blind eye? Now, if Michael Cohen's doing illegal stuff, then the argument could be made that President Trump enabled him and is potentially a co-conspirator. But if it's Cohen's job was to fix, there's nothing wrong with having an attorney on retainer to fix things. That's what attorneys do.
So people do. Very quickly, thumbs up, thumbs down. Stormy Daniels, her appearance on Saturday Night Live, you think it'll help or hurt?
I think it's hard to hurt the credibility of a porn star, so I'm not sure how far it really hurts her. I don't think it really helps her actual case. I mean, I think there's a big PR blitz here on their part as well.
All right. Vinoo Varghese, thank you so much for your insights. We always appreciate your coming by. Thank you.
Thank you.